You think high-value men automatically win in the game of attraction? Think again. While other channels feed you surface-level dating advice, I'm about to reveal a psychological truth that most men will never understand, and it's hiding in plain sight. Woman you desire isn't choosing based on what you think she's choosing based on. She's operating on a completely different frequency, one that has nothing to do with status, money, or conventional value, and everything to do with something far more primal and mysterious. Welcome to Machiavelli Mirrors, where we study human nature through the ruthless wisdom of Niccolò Machiavelli. Here, we do not chase illusions of modern romance. We dissect it, understand it, and master it. Because the man who understands how love and power intertwine becomes the kind of man women cannot easily replace. Let us begin. Society has built an altar around the image of the value man, the man with the perfect jawline, the designer suit, the luxury car, the high income, and the confidence that borders on arrogance. From the outside, he seems untouchable. He's admired, envied, and desired. If you look closer, behind the curtain of social media perfection, you'll often find something hollow. Because true value isn't measured in wealth or attention, it's measured in power over oneself. You see, women are constantly told to chase the man who looks like he has everything, but what they rarely understand is that the very thing they're drawn to, status, is often the mask of insecurity. The high-value man must constantly prove his worth. Every new car, every new outfit, every new photo is a desperate attempt to maintain his throne in the court of perception. Machiavelli would say, "The crowd is easily deceived by appearances, yet appearances without substance soon collapse." When a woman meets this kind of man, she's impressed. At first, his confidence shines bright like gold under the sun. But gold, when held too long, loses its mystery. It becomes predictable. She soon discovers that his value exists only in the eyes of others. He needs validation to breathe. He needs admiration to feel alive. And once she realizes that his power depends on attention, she begins to sense his weakness. Now, here's where you enter. You, the man who doesn't seek to impress, but to understand. The man who speaks less, but whose words carry weight. The man who doesn't chase recognition, because recognition chases him. Your power doesn't come from the noise around you. It comes from the silence you master within yourself. When you walk into a room, you're not competing. You're observing, you're grounded. And that composure, that quiet, almost regal stillness, commands attention far more than any display of wealth ever could. Women feel it. They sense it instinctively, because while everyone else is performing for approval, you stand as if you already own the space. And that's what separates a truly powerful man from a high-valued man. The high-valued man's strength exists only when others acknowledge it. But your strength exists even when no one sees it. Machiavelli once wrote that it is better to be feared than loved, if one cannot be both. But what he meant was not cruelty. He meant respect born from inner command. When a woman senses that you do not need her validation, her interest, or her affection to define yourself, she experiences something rare, security. The kind of security no status man can provide, because his worth is fragile, dependent on admiration. Yours, however, is internal, built on conviction, not applause. Understand this: women don't fall for status, they fall for stability. They are drawn to the man who is calm in chaos, steady when others panic, composed when others crumble. You become that man when you stop performing and start leading, not through dominance, but through direction. Every word you say is deliberate, every action, measured. You're not rushing to prove anything, you're simply being. And that being, that controlled presence, carries the scent of authority. It's the difference between noise and influence. A high-valued man wants to be seen. A powerful man, a Machiavellian man, wants to be felt. That is why meets both, her attraction will shift. She'll admire the first, but she'll trust the second. And in love, admiration fades, but trust endures. When she's with the high-value man, she feels excitement. When she's with you, she feels peace. And peace, my friend, is what every woman ultimately seeks, even if she doesn't yet know it. A man ruled by emotion is a man easily conquered. You can see it everywhere. Men who crumble at rejection, who chase validation through arguments, who mistake attention for affection. They wear their hearts on their sleeves and call it honesty, when in truth, it is simply a lack of control. Machiavelli would remind such men that emotion, left unchecked, turns power into weakness. Because the man who cannot govern himself can govern nothing and no one. Think of how many men lose themselves the moment a woman tests them. A small comment, a delayed reply, a hint of indifference. And suddenly, their entire sense of worth begins to tremble. They overreact, they overexplain, they overpursue. What they call passion is often panic. What they call love is often fear of losing control. But here's the truth: women test men not to break them, but to find their boundaries. When she senses your emotions can be easily stirred, she realizes you are still learning yourself. And no woman can truly surrender to a man who is still at war within. Emotional sovereignty is the quiet art of staying unmoved when the world demands a reaction. It's not coldness, it's clarity. It means you understand that her moods are waves, but you are the shore. The high-value man, with all his charm and social prestige, may still crumble the moment his pride is scratched. His confidence is a costume, easily torn by rejection, easily shaken by disinterest. Your confidence isn't a costume, it's carved into you. You don't rise and fall with her approval because your sense of power doesn't come from her. It comes from mastery over yourself. When she tries to provoke you, to test if you're truly grounded, you don't play the game. You don't need to win every argument, because your silence speaks more than her words. When she becomes emotional, you don't mirror it, you absorb it. You remain composed, observant, and decisive. And in that calmness, she feels something rare: safety. She begins to sense that she can trust your presence, because it is unshaken. Women are drawn to emotional strength not because it dominates them, but because it stabilizes them. In a world filled with chaos, gossip, and emotional noise, a man who remains composed becomes a sanctuary. He is not the loudest voice, he is the voice that makes everything else go quiet. That's the kind of presence that doesn't just attract women. It commands their loyalty. Machiavelli wrote that fortune favors the bold, but he also warned that boldness without discipline leads to ruin. Emotional sovereignty is that discipline. It allows you to move boldly without being reckless, to love deeply without becoming dependent. It makes your affection a choice, not a need. The truth is, most men confuse emotional expression with emotional strength. They believe that being transparent about every feeling is the mark of authenticity. The wise man knows that emotions are not meant to be spilled. They are meant to be channeled. You don't hide what you feel. You harness it. You turn jealousy into ambition, frustration into focus, desire into drive. You use emotion as energy, not evidence of weakness. And when you live this way, something shifts. She begins to see you differently. She feels your restraint not as distance, but as depth. Every moment of silence becomes charged with significance. Every word you do speak becomes heavy with intention. She can sense that you are not reacting. You are deciding. That's what emotional sovereignty is, the power to decide how you feel when you express it and why. You become the author of your emotions, not their audience. And the man who writes his own emotions writes his own fate. There is a reason mystery has always been one of the most powerful weapons in human psychology. What cannot be easily seen cannot be easily judged, and what cannot be judged cannot be controlled. Machiavelli understood this truth deeply. He knew that uncertainty breeds fascination, and fascination gives power. In relationships, the same law applies. The man who reveals too much too soon forfeits his influence. The man who maintains an air of quiet unpredictability commands attention without asking for it. Most men make the same fatal mistake. They want to be understood instantly. They spill their past, their feelings, their intentions, all in the hope of building closeness. But what they actually build is predictability. And once a woman knows exactly who you are, where your mind goes, and what you'll do next, she stops wondering. And the moment she stops wondering, her desire begins to fade. Curiosity is the oxygen of attraction. Without it, the fire dies. The high-value man tries to impress her through openness. He wants her to know how successful he is, how disciplined, how in demand. He floods her with information about himself as if data can inspire devotion. Devotion isn't born from information. It's born from intrigue. She doesn't fall for what she knows. She falls for what she wants to know. Mystery is not about deception. It's about restraint. It's about letting silence speak louder than explanation. When she asks questions, you answer, but not all of them. You give her enough to stay curious, not enough to feel finished. When you talk about your life, you share glimpses, not stories. A small fragment here, a suggestion there. You build an image in her mind, not complete, but captivatingly incomplete. Women are intuitive by nature. They seek emotional puzzles to decode. The moment she senses something deeper about you, something she can't fully grasp, her mind begins to chase it. She replays conversations in her head, analyzing tone, body language, and every unspoken word. And in doing so, she invests in you emotionally without even realizing it. That's the power of mystery. It shifts the pursuit from you to her. Machiavelli would call this controlled perception. He wrote that a wise ruler should never reveal his true intentions, for the unknown keeps both allies and enemies cautious. In love, the principle is identical. A woman who can predict you will grow comfortable. But a woman who cannot predict you will grow attentive. And attention, once captured, becomes the foundation of desire. When you don't constantly announce your plans, your emotions, or your intentions, you give her room to imagine. And imagination, my friend, is far stronger than reality. She begins to fill the gaps with her own ideal version of you. And that version becomes powerful in her mind. You become not just a man she likes, but a man she wonders about. Every great story keeps its audience on edge. Every great leader holds back just enough truth to maintain authority. You must treat your personal life, your emotions, your goals, the same way. You don't need to be mysterious for the sake of confusion. You need to be mysterious for the sake of control. Because when you are unpredictable, you are untouchable. The high-value man wants applause. He performs. He wants to be admired for what he shows. But you let your presence speak for you. You let people sense there's more beneath the surface. You create tension not through words, but through withheld energy. That subtle difference changes everything. It makes her chase your essence rather than your attention. And when she can't quite read you, she won't stop trying. That's when fascination becomes attachment. Not because of what you gave her, but because of what you didn't. Presence is powerful, but absence is sacred. In a world where everyone is desperate to be seen, heard, and validated, the man who knows when to disappear gains a strange kind of control. Most men don't understand this. They think love is proven through constant communication, endless reassurance, and unbroken attention. But what they don't see is that too much presence dulls desire. Familiarity breeds comfort. Comfort, if unchecked, kills fascination. Machiavelli would remind us that influence is not maintained by constant proximity, but by strategic distance. When you are always available, you remove the space in which curiosity grows. You turn yourself into background noise. And no matter how genuine your affection is, a woman cannot crave what she constantly consumes. The high-value man often falls into this trap. He showers her with attention because he believes abundance equals love. But attention given too freely becomes ordinary. What once felt special becomes expected. Soon your presence is no longer a gift, it's routine. Controlled absence, however, is not neglect. It's strategy. It's the discipline of stepping back before your energy is taken for granted. It's the wisdom of creating space for her to feel your absence, not just notice it. When you withdraw, not out of anger but out of intent, you reawaken appreciation. She begins to sense the void your silence creates. That's when she starts to think. She replays your words, your tone, your gestures. She begins to miss the energy that once filled her space. The human mind amplifies what it loses. This is why distance builds value. The man who is constantly chasing is cheapened by his own availability. The man who can walk away, not as a tactic but as a principle, radiates authority. Because his absence is not punishment, it's proof of independence. It shows that he does not need validation to feel relevant. He does not beg for attention. He creates it through scarcity. Machiavelli wrote that a wise ruler must sometimes withdraw from his subjects to maintain reverence. Too much familiarity invites contempt. The same principle applies in love. The woman who sees you every day, who receives constant messages and constant attention, begins to normalize your presence. She stops feeling lucky to have it. But when she feels your absence, when she notices the silence where your presence used to be, she realizes the depth of what she's been experiencing. This is not about manipulation. It's about self-respect. You don't disappear to make her chase you. You disappear because your focus belongs to your purpose. You don't step back to play games. You step back because you value your peace. When your time becomes precious, your presence becomes powerful. And she will sense it. She'll see that you are not a man who gives his energy away freely. You are deliberate, selective, intentional. Controlled absence also tests the foundation of any connection. When you're not around, does she grow distant? Or does she reach out? Does she seek others for the attention you once provided? Or does she sit with the silence you left behind? Her reaction reveals everything. It shows whether her connection to you is built on emotion or on attachment. And either way, you win, because you've learned the truth. Absence is not the enemy of love, it's the architect of longing. Every great connection needs distance to breathe, just as fire needs air to burn. When you are always there, the flame suffocates. When you know when to leave, it reignites. Art lies in balance, being close enough to be felt, but distant enough to be desired. Most men chase reassurance, few men inspire reflection. When you master controlled absence, you become the latter. You move with quiet certainty, never begging for space but commanding it naturally. You leave behind not emptiness, presence through memory, the kind that lingers when you're gone echoing louder than any words ever could. There is a different kind of power that doesn't come from status, looks, or charm. It comes from direction. The man who knows where he is going radiates something the rest of the world can't imitate. Machiavelli understood this better than anyone. He saw that people naturally follow certainty. The uncertain are drawn to the certain, and the lost are drawn to the man who walks a straight path without looking back. This is the aura of purpose, the invisible energy that makes others orbit around your will. When a man moves through life without a clear purpose, everything around him becomes unstable. His emotions control him, his relationships define him, and his choices are shaped by the approval of others. He becomes reactive, living according to what the world gives him, instead of what he decides to create. The high-value man often falls into this trap. He chases external symbols, the car, the suit, the admiration, believing those things will give him identity. But purpose is not decoration. It's direction. It's what gives weight to your words and intention to your silence. When a woman meets a man consumed by his mission, she senses it before he ever speaks. There's something in the way he carries himself. Not arrogance, but assurance. His eyes don't wander, his speech doesn't stumble, and his time feels guarded. She can feel that his attention is a privilege, not a prize. It doesn't mean he's cold or detached, it means he's selective. His life has architecture, every moment has intention, and that structure becomes magnetic. Machiavelli wrote that fortune favors those who act with purpose rather than chance. The same applies to relationships. The man without a mission will always bend to someone else's will. But the man with purpose becomes a pillar. He doesn't chase love, he attracts it. Because women don't truly seek men with everything, they seek men who are becoming something. A man walking toward a destiny creates motion, and motion draws desire. Imagine two kinds of men. One spends his days proving his value. The other spends his days building it. One fights to be admired, the other simply grows. When she stands before both, she feels the difference without needing to think. One is loud, seeking attention. The other is silent, but his silence feels full, like something powerful is forming beneath it. That stillness, that unwavering direction, becomes irresistible. It's not about dominance, it's about gravity. Purpose also gives you immunity to emotional chaos. When your vision leads, you stop making decisions based on temporary feelings. You don't chase people, you don't beg for love, and you don't crumble when someone walks away, because your path continues either way. You understand that not everyone can walk beside you, and that's the cost of evolution. It's not loneliness, it's purification. Purpose filters your company. It reveals who's meant to stay and who's only meant to pass through. A man with purpose is unpredictable not because he hides, but because he's focused. He doesn't waste time explaining his actions or seeking sympathy. His attention is sacred, his discipline consistent, and his presence feels like momentum. When he looks at you, you feel both curiosity and calm. Curiosity because you sense his depth, calm because you sense his control. That combination is what makes him unforgettable. Machiavelli believed that greatness belongs to those who control their circumstances instead of being controlled by them. In love, that means leading with vision, not emotion. When your world revolves around your purpose, everything else aligns naturally. The right woman won't compete with your mission. She'll respect it. She'll see that your path doesn't depend on her, and that independence will make her trust you even more. Because she'll know that your loyalty is a choice, not a need. A man with purpose doesn't just live, he directs life itself. His focus turns ordinary moments into symbols of strength. His actions echo even when he's silent, and in that silence, the world begins to recognize what few ever master. The rare aura of a man who doesn't chase power, because he is power in motion. In the end, it all returns to one simple truth. Power and love doesn't belong to the man who chases, but to the man who chooses. Every value, man may have the looks, the money, admiration of others, but those things fade the moment the mask slips. What remains? What truly holds a woman's heart is a man anchored in himself, the man who moves with calm intention, who understands that love is not a battlefield of need, but a dance of influence. When you strip away the illusions, you see the pattern clearly. Women are not searching for perfection, they're searching for presence. They're drawn not to what shines the brightest, but to what feels the most certain. And certainty is born from self-mastery. It is forged in silence, in discipline, in the ability to stay composed when others demand chaos. Every principle you've heard, the illusion of high value, the mastery of emotion, the strength of mystery, the power of controlled absence, and the magnetism of purpose, they all lead to one thing: sovereignty. The kind of sovereignty that cannot be taken, because it was never built on others. Machiavelli taught that the man who governs himself governs the world. In love, that means understanding the delicate balance between desire and dominance, between vulnerability and restraint. It means knowing that the moment you stop trying to win her, you begin to command her respect. So, as the world keeps chasing validation and calling it connection, you must stand apart. You must become the rare kind of man who doesn't seek approval, earns admiration through the quiet certainty of his actions. Because when a woman feels that she cannot sway you, when she realizes that your power doesn't depend on her attention, that's when she chooses you over all others. And that is the Machiavellian truth about attraction. She does not choose the man who shines the most. She chooses the man who stands still while the world bends around him.